All right, it is indeed a very, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's a Friday, the 24th of February 2023. Tarehe 24 mwezi wa pili mwaka 2022. Natumai kwamba uko salama, umeamka vizuri. It's another Friday. Thank God it's Friday. Thank God it's Friday, the Sheria Wiki edition of the Friday of 24th February 2023. Kama kawaida unijoin, please like when you like, we get to know that you're watching us. Nothing please share. When you share, you give someone else an opportunity to watch the broadcast. Unijoin, please like when you like, we get to know that you're watching us. And not like share. When you share, you give someone else an opportunity to watch the broadcast. This is the Tackle Sheria Wiki edition of the 24th of February 2023. All right, let's look. Kuna watu ambao wanaweza kuamka mapema kama kawaida Friday, huwa tunapeana kazawadi kidogo kupata kaya time ya Friday. First 10 to join the Tackle this morning. The first 10 to join the Tackle this morning get to win some airtime. So kabla hatujaomba ndio watu wasijae mapema, let's ensure that we can get the first 10. Please producer, chukua our first 10. Patrick Mngeno, good morning. That is number 1. Patrick Mngeno nambari 1. Mungu aluta continue. Wewe uko UK sasa uweze pata airtime. And some good morning, tuned in from Covent United Kingdom. Happy to be part of this morning Sheria Wiki edition. Asante sana. Geoffrey Biward is number 2. Asante sana. Henok Ngeti number 3. Aizo number 4. Anasema in as usual. Blessed Alice number 5. Mosinho Del Monte number 6. Rosalia Chepoiso number 7. Edwin Lagat number 8. Carolina Saina number 9. Valches number 10. Haya, mambo imeisha hivyo. First 10 pamoja. Patrick Kimngeno, asante sana. Number 2 Geoffrey Biward number 3. Henok Ngetich number 4. Aizo number 5. Blessed Alice number 6. Mosinto number 7. Rosalia number 8. Edwin Lagat number 9. Caroline Sana number 10. Valches. Good morning and I hope you're doing well. Kama kawaida tuende mbele za Mungu tuombe, alafu tukirudi basi tunakuja kuingia kazi haraka upesi. Though Daktari Ekuru anasemanga tunaomba, alafu immediately kusema amen tunaanza matusi. Lakini lazima tuombe. Mimi kama bishop lazima niombe hawa wanasiasa hapa. Mighty Father, we come before this morning. We thank you for this day. We thank you even for this show. We thank you for the conversation that we are about to have. For every tackler as well who is joining us, may you meet them at a point of individual needs. We pray, trusting and believing. Amen. Good morning. Rosalia, good morning. Tackle, good morning to you. Edwin Langat tuned in live. Kiongozi, let's tackle the Sheria. Asante Caroline Saina inside Valches. Too fast. Asante Joseph Wambugu niko ndani. Asante Pascal Ouma. Good morning to you, Pascal. I hope you're doing well. Fred Ngati, good morning. Tom Tomito. And here are the rules. You don't only need to be the first 10. You need to be the first 10 and share. If I look at your profile and you've not shared, then you don't have your airtime. So make sure that when you join in, please like. When you like, we get to know that you're watching us. And after like, please share. When you share, you give someone else an opportunity to watch the broadcast. So it's not enough to be the first 10. You also must share. So we'll come to your profile, we check. Kama uja share, basi airtime yako inaenda to the next person. All right. Good morning, Tom Tomito. Good morning. I hope you're doing well, blessed. Good morning, David Coach.
Shilingi 2 ama
najua uchumi ni
so lazima tukue accountable kwa hii nchi. We have to track what people say. We disclose.
We cannot disclose. At least unajua atapata kakitu.
Kakitu. Sasa from meta imekuwa kakitu. Okay.
All right. David, good morning. Gerald from Cheptil. Asante sana Jane Mumbi. Good morning. God bless. Asante sana Jane Mumbi. Safaris by Jen. Thank you. Aiso Amen. Abu Kishkiblima good to see you. Good morning. KJ. Good morning. Mheshimiwa. Good morning to you. And I hope you keeping well. Mimi ni Bishop. Mheshimiwa ndio wako hapa. Good morning Daktari.
Morning Bitok. Ama daktari gani unamaanisha? Unajua pia kuna daktari Komolo hapo.
Oh, tunaye mimi ndio daktari. Ndio katikati ya madaktari. Good morning.
Morning Bitok. Morning Dr. Komolo. Nice to meet you for the first time, I guess.
Thank you. It's not for the first time. We've met several, except since I'm fairly junior to you. It's normal for him not to remember me. I don't take offense.
Okay. Yeah, but welcome to the Tackle. I mean, this is where we tackle issues openly and head on, regardless of who is out there listening or watching.
Yes.
But also at the end of the day, the idea is to pass a conversation about the country on real issues.
Yes. Samanga tupembeleze punda kwa mteremko.
Kabisa. Teremsha mzigo kama umeamua kubeba.
Kama mbaya. So all right, last week hukuonekana kama shughuli ilishika kidogo, tulipeana apologies yako, watu walikuwa wanauliza daktari anaenda wapi leo? But we gave out your apologies. How have things been? Mambo imekuwa vipi?
Things, I think, this week I took some time to just interact with guys and ask people, what is happening. I mean, the common conversation or common thing emerging is that things are not good. Things are not as rosy as they had been promised during the campaign period. I remember one person telling me, mbona siku hizi hatusikii mambo ya bottom up? What happened to that narrative of bottom up? So guys are asking. I mean, we don't even hear about bottom up anymore, and in a way they are right, because it looks like the conversations have now moved from the idea of growing the economy from the bottom to now praying for everything. Economy has gone bad. Twende mbele za Mungu tuombe ndio fix mambo ya high taxes, cost of living. People also say now ati bei ya unga imeshuka, lakini za vitu zingine kama electricity, maji. So there is really no solution at the end of the day. So that conversion is emerging from when you take, for example, a Uber driver, they will tell you things are not good. Guys in the villages are saying, hata kulipa school fees ni ngumu. I don't know, Bitok, you can see even from your own WhatsApp.
Yes.
People these days are adding you to a WhatsApp group for anything.
Yeah, crazy.
It's collecting school fees, Medicare, food. And sometimes, okay, maybe because of this WhatsApp, kutata mpaka strangers, they're just asking you for help. So I ask myself the fundamental question. So really, even if you are able to assist one or two people or a couple of people, the multitude of requests about the state of the cost of living is just overwhelming. And so there is a way in which now we can relate, and I hope Kenyans are waking up, that political promises are not necessarily what will be realized when government is formed. I'm sure we'll discuss about this also.
Sure,
but you have also heard that serikali couldn't kampuni
tutaenda hapo. Good morning, Dr.
Good morning, Komolo. How are you?
I realize now I'm sandwiched by doctors. Hata mimi najua daktari.
Awe ni bishop.
Mimi bishop.
Get inspired. Hata uone ni doctor ama.
Najua ukiwa bishop unapewa honorary. Naenda napewa honorary kwa England.
Yeah, that's faster way to get it.
Right, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
It's definitely your first time here, but of course I've seen you elsewhere. I've been listening to your conversations in other spaces. But I'm happy at least to host you finally.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Say hello to the third class. Kuna ngwana anakuanga huko nje wanakuangalia wanaitwa third class.
Yes,
say hello to them. Your camera right straight ahead of you.
Yes, I've been following the tackle. I've been wondering why you don't invite me. Yet I think I'm one of your keen followers. I see you inviting my friend Duncan Ojuang a lot.
Oh, yes.
Including when he made very serious viral comments.
He's one of the pioneers.
Yes. Ojuang is my friend as well.
Oh, okay.
And I'm happy to also debate with Dr. Aukot, who doesn't remember that he taught me at the Kenya School of Law.
Oh, is that so?
Yes, and doesn't remember we share many friends. But I mean, we agree on many things about the situation of the economy, prayers. Not a bad thing to pray, but you pray and also implement your manifesto. And of course, manifesto, if you implement it rightly, there must be some positive results. But I don't speak for Kenya Kwanza, so they should come and talk about their results. As far as I'm concerned, many people are worried that perhaps they're a bit slow in implementing the actual manifesto. Yes.
So if you talk with that revelation from Dr. Komolo, if you never respected me before, you must respect me now. Because I'm seated here with a product of my teaching. And I taught him when he was an LLB,
LLB, yes.
LLB. You can see the progression.
I think
he went on to become an advocate, did masters, now PhD, and we are sitting on the same table. Yeah?
This is now for Chebukati. I remember Chebukati alisema ona
ni heshimu tafadhali.
Chebukati alisema ona.
Remind Chebukati, here is a student I taught. I could not have taught him, I did not have a degree certificate.
Chebukati
was an insult.
Bugatti, you have a missed call. You have a missed call here. But I think there's something that's come out, and it has to be the misdemeanor of Kenyans on the roads, the bad behaviors of Kenyans on the roads, and even elsewhere in social spaces.
Yeah.
You find that Kenyans behave in the most crazy of ways. I think we lack social manners. When you go to other countries, even basic social manners, I would approach you, maybe nikusalimie. Na kama pia unataka usaidizi, hata ukiuliza Mkenya barabara ni wapi, anakuambia bwana, hii si kazi yangu hapa, uliniweka hapa nikuonyeshanga barabara. And more specifically on the roads. And every time when you drive around, you find a lot of Kenyans jump lights. Unapata Wakenya wanaingia, I mean, the misdemeanor on our roads and our social behavior, our social engineering. What do you think about how we are?
To be honest with you, there's a time I had to chase somebody literally on this Ngong Road. I was driving towards Karen, and somebody just threw a bottle on the road. I decided, no, these bad manners, we can't accept it to litter the environment. I chased him on the highway and I blocked him. I came out. Actually, I caused a bit of a traffic. I told him, no, that's bad manners. Go back and pick that bottle. Yeah. But over and above that, many things happening in our social setup. Maybe the fundamental point I want to make is that, you see, there's a lot of indiscipline or largesse with the way in which we behave towards each other. And what worries me is that it creates a culture or a character of a society. And which is why I think even if you look at in the East Africa region, there is a general acceptance that Kenyans are corrupt. Kenyans are land grabbers. Kenyans are thieves. We don't want to hear this, but it is known in the East African region that we cannot trust Kenyans. Yes, we are maybe ahead of them in terms of many things, education or economy or whatever. But there's that general agreement that this is the character of Kenyans. And why? It's informed by some of these small things. Like, not just stopping, for example, if you are a driver, there is a pedestrian crossing. And you can see a pedestrian wants to cross. It only takes like 2 seconds. But you don't care. You just want to drive because you have a car. So, of course, that Kenyan will look at you badly. But then you also have other type of Kenyan road users. Like, for example, I don't understand border. I saw your tweet last week when you said that I think they have got what?
A death tender.
Death tender. Like, these guys don't care about themselves. They just can cross from anywhere. Again, matatu users. And so cumulatively, because I also want to ask myself many times, if a border or a matatu and is being recklessly being driven, what is my role in telling that guy, no, you can't risk my life that way? And you have accepted certain bad manners, just even less littering. So for me, I think it's one of the things that we need to constantly remind Kenyans. We must behave ourselves in a certain way. If you cross over just to Rwanda, you see how clean the streets are. Nobody will ever even throw away a plastic bag. You go to other countries, you see the way citizens behave. You collect your garbage, you take it. Maybe we don't have an incineration plant, but at least we have places where we can throw our garbage. So all these, in my view. And if I were to connect it maybe to the legal political situation in this country, it also speaks to the character of leaders that we have. Because it looks like this society that is so reckless, that is so indisciplined, actually deserves, because where will leaders come from? It must come from that same indisciplined society. So we should not be surprised when we get some lackluster, fakeless leaders up there who will speak recklessly, like, for example, Rigiji, and we'll come to that, where, and it's not the first time he's spoken badly. And I saw even somebody advising him that Rigiji needs to sit down with the elders to tone down.
But he's an elder.
Well, I think he needs maybe to sit with them.
Or sometimes elders need to sit down with elders.
The real elders. Yeah, because, so you see, this thing permeates even in the way to the extent to which we are being governed, the extent we are being led, so that when leaders abuse each other, like you rightfully said, they pray, the next thing, they're insulting each other. Now, when someone like Raila Odinga calls Rigiji takataka, takataka, and he said it publicly, his report is not me, So you can see what value system are we giving to our children, and their children? So it becomes really who we are. But I think it's time we resist. Some of us, we don't believe in that kind of behavior. We need to talk about it.
Okay. Dr. Komolo, what do you think about our social engineering in Kenya and social behavior?
Even worse is something emerging called road rage. Yes. Apart from indiscipline of border and tuk-tuk, there are motorists who think they have better vehicles than others.
Wow. Okay.
And they hoot all over. They overtake on the wrong side. Mostly young people, and then they make a lot of noise, play loud music. It's easy to blame this on politics. Of course, politics is a reflection of the society, but these are fairly educated people. They should know better that this is their life, this is their country, and that when we share the road, then you must have some basic courtesy. So I think that for road rage, I think it's general indiscipline and perhaps alcoholism that's coming in.
Even in the morning, as I was coming here.
People drink until morning.
As I was coming here, you see that junction, the lights at Prestige and Ngong Road.
Yes.
I'm completely on the left lane.
Yes.
So because I want to come straight here.
Yes.
But there's somebody where there is no road. He was pushing me. I'm looking at him. I'm wondering, unaenda wapi? Utapitia wapi?
Yeah. So
because the next thing he will scratch me.
So there's a lot of indiscipline on our roads. I'm just hoping that particularly in the cities, the county governments become a little bit more proactive in enforcing traffic laws, because they are there. The issue is not lack of laws. The issue is more of enforcement. For the most part, it is very easy to get through traffic police officers. First, because it's easy to bribe them and get away with it. So most of these things I don't think will be disciplined by traffic officers. In fact, I think it's wrong deployment of well-trained police officers to spend time just controlling traffic like the one I've just seen here next to Prestige as I was coming here. It's wastage of human power. It's basically all we need is to have, because these are municipal issues. Municipal means they are local government issues. We simply need to have the right traffic marshals. And importantly, we need to have designated places for specific kinds of motorists or vehicles. So, for example, we don't really need most of these motorcycles on main roads. Border. I understand there are the need for employment and joblessness and all that, but I doubt whether a city can be sustainable with that. This high level of unregulated border around. Forget about delivery guys, the border guys. If you go to Mombasa, it's worse with tuk-tuk. I'm not sure Mombasa can be a global city. And by the way, you need to remember Kigali is already overtaken Kenya in terms of conference tourism. So I'm not very sure that Mombasa can be that place we trust as a global city, including for tourism and conferencing. I meant Kigali has overtaken Mombasa for Kenya for conferencing. With that kind of tuk-tuk all over the place, I mean, at a particular point, you'll think they are more than human beings in central business district of Mombasa.
Those are more than human beings.
Yeah, so something has to happen, and that's happening in Kisumu as well.
All right.
There are two things that I think Daktari's submissions have triggered in me. Number one, I think it's about time we debate. Yes, I commonly hear people say that we are one of the more educated countries in the sub-Saharan Africa. For me, it's an arguable case. Education means something different than you attending school and being a passenger in those schools, because it is an outcome of you sitting in high schools, colleges, and the way you behave thereafter. So I feel that, Daktari, I don't think we are educated. Maybe we went to school, we have certificates, we have all that. Because now, even from a political context, there are those people who say that they went to school and they waive certificates, but now we know they don't. Secondly, I think there is need for messaging to come from the leadership. The top leadership. I'll give you an example. When I was a student at Warwick, UK, the then Prime Minister, Tony Blair, was concerned about the health budget in the country. So he commissioned a study. And the study revealed that the reason the NHIS, I think theirs is called NHIS, the NHS, the reason NHS is actually struggling with matters of healthcare is because of the bad eating manners of the British people. And obesity was identified as one of those leading causes, because now it was overburdening the healthcare budget. So Tony Blair spoke about, we must change our ways. We must, we must work on our obesity. So small messaging like those, they might look small, actually for a president or a prime minister or a governor to speak about, but they impact on, for example, on the budgeting to address social issues. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so moving in, we've talked about the misdemeanor of Kenya, so maybe it's time to switch to the misdemeanor of politicians. And I saw you had jumped into that, and it has to, the biggest conversation this week definitely has been around Rigiji and his statements, first of all, on Kenya being a company, and that ni kiongozi wa UDA, president, ni kiongozi wa nchi, ni kiongozi wa UDA. And he's been framed as a truthful man. Truthful man. Is there any problem with what Rigiji has been able to spell out, Dr. Komolo?
It depends on your understanding of a company. Mm-hmm. I don't want to discuss regarding Gachagua as a person because, to be honest with you, I don't think I know him that much. Mm-hmm. I noticed him in the political scene in 2017. Then he kept running around the then deputy president, mostly in Central. And after some time, he emerged as kind of the leading figure to become DP. I don't seem to know his CV well, except the history of him having served in the so-called provincial administration as DEO. I don't think he rose to DC. And so I can understand why sometimes he talks in a manner that looks like he thinks running a country is like giving instructions on somebody to do something here and there. It is true a country is a company. But a company with social objectives. So there are companies that are entirely designed to maximize profits for the owners, for the directors. But there are also companies that have social objectives. So if you want to look at it figuratively, yes, a country is a company and should be run with a lot of discipline. But a company that must deliver on social objectives, it must deliver on infrastructure, must deliver on inclusivity. Dr. Ekuru was one of those who wrote the Constitution, and I'm one of those he took to Nanyuki somewhere around 2010 to discuss some issues there. So inclusivity is very important. So when you're talking about a company, we need to know who you are bringing on board to, hold different functions in the company. The concern is that at the moment they are not distributing it fairly, particularly for those perceived to be coming from regions that didn't vote for them. Of course, the company must also deliver on their manifesto. The objectives of the company is the manifesto UDA gave us. So if you told us you're going to build stadium in all the counties, ultra-modern stadium, we need that. If you told us you're going to deliver on healthcare, we need to know how you're coming up with reforms to deliver on healthcare. If you talked of bottom-up, economic model, which I disputed even then because there's nothing like that. But I assume that there are people like Ndi who have a fairly good understanding of economics, that you must now implement whatever you meant by bottom-up. Bottom-up can't be aggressive taxation, because when you tax people, what they do is to shift their businesses elsewhere or abandon the business altogether. That's the essence of taxation. Bottom-up can't be giving people fuliza and you call it hustlers fund. There must be an objective, because you don't just give everyone in the country. Not everyone in the country is a businessman, remember? You don't just give everyone money anyhow through an app and call it some kind of bottom-up intervention. It must be a very structured financing mechanism through which, for example, I incorporate a company. I come with objectives. You help build my capacity to do business first. Then you help me access capital. And then, of course, you have a mechanism for refunding it and refinancing. So I mean, I don't know. I think the Rigathi still does not understand their mandate. And that is why the opposition is coming out strongly. There's a lot of room to criticize them, including comedians like Eric Omondi. because to be fair, they're also faced with international challenges, but that does not stop them from implementing particularly domestic aspects of their manifesto. So yes, a country is a company to be direct, but with social objectives, not with this. It's not run with egos.
Sorry, Kijako sawa.
I don't. No. I mean, if you listen to me well, I have actually disputed all these notions of governance. Yeah,
but it depends on how you look at it. But if then you look at the way you're saying, a country is a company, yes, which shareholders with an interest or objectivity to deliver, and there's no standard objective on what to comply on. So they can define it. That's
earlier we were discussing about how Kenya is a regional power and all that. I dispute that. Dr. If you go to most of African countries, they're emerging faster than us. Including in East Africa, we are soon going to be overtaken by Rwanda and Uganda. Remember, all this we have a lot to do with the fact that we'll be relatively stable. So, global investors, including non-profit organizations, saw it fit to be headquartered here while serving other regions. Stability is increasingly being achieved across Africa and East Africa in particular. By the way, in January, Ethiopia overtook us to be the 5th biggest economy in Africa. So we should not sit pretty, thinking that, when you have elections and you've won, then automatically you have a mandate to talk down people. And multi-ethnic country like Kenya, you should deliberately be very diplomatic in approaching other people who are of different opinion, because you need all of them. You need my innovation, you need Bitok's innovation, including disrupting the media the way you're doing here, to challenge traditional media industry. And in the process, the country flourishes. And remember, you also have to pay their taxes.
Usuru.
All that. So it's not as simple as it looks when you present a manifesto.
Okay. Dr. Ekuru, you are one of the critics.
For me, first of all,
so
you
went hard on Twitter.
Dr. Komolo is being diplomatic, but I'll welcome you to the tackle, and we use the right lingua here. First of all, I disagree. Kenya cannot be a company, even if you are to theorize it that way, the way Dr. is theorizing. But I'm sure he's using it as a metaphor to describe a company. But let's go to the true definition of a country. Yeah. It starts with the word. In fact, let me just borrow it. Sometimes they say Google is your friend. Okay. A country is a nation with its own government, okay, occupying a particular territory. Part 2 of understanding what a country is, you go to its districts and small settlements outside large urban areas or the capital. So it starts with the word a nation. And nation now goes to mean the people. Who are these people? For example, when you describe about a nation state, you are looking at, for example, the character and nature of those people. That's why we are called Kenyans, Ugandans, Tanzanians, South Sudanese, Rwandese. So Daktari, I will not mince my words.
Yes.
Rigathi Gachagua is a political conman. Rigathi Gachagua is ignorant on what governance is. He's ignorant on what a country is. He's ignorant on what a nation is. And I say this, let me justify. You see, what Rigathi Gachagua is actually telling us, exhibiting, is typical political conmanship that has been part and parcel of our governance in this country for the longest time. And you can go back memory lane, Bitok, to explain this political conmanship. At independence, we were told that the liberators in this country, actually the Mama were duped from the very beginning. In fact, they were disregarded, they were betrayed by the people who never even fought actually for this country. And to be specific, Jomo Kenyatta never actually went to the bush to fight for this country. But over time, they emerged as if they're the ones actually who liberated Kenya. The real liberators of this country, the Mau Mau, the freedom fighters, were actually relegated. That's why they even had to take their case to the UK for compensation. Now, fast forward, that was the first liberation, in my view, which was actually betrayed in this country. no, by the political leadership of this country. And that's why I'm saying Rigathi Gachagua is now finally confirming political conmanship in the history of Kenya's governance. In the early 90s, there are those who agitated for multi-party democracy, and that ended up with the repeal of Section 2A that ushered in multi-party democracy. The Raila Odingas, the rest, and others. But as soon as they got into government, they forgot about all those things. You remember the issue of partnerships, cooperation from 1997 and all that. Now, in 2002, Kibaki and his other guys came with the idea that Kenya was now in the cusp of renewal. So the idea, they thought we are voting for Kibaki, but actually we are voting against Moi, who was not even running. And that's because Moi had imposed Uhuru Kenyatta on Kenyans at that time. But as soon as Kibaki and his people grabbed power, took over power, you saw the rift starting with the 2005 referendum. Raila and his team now were kicked out of government, even though they came together as the NAC coalition at that time. So because of this political conmanship, some people were kicked out. In 2007, you saw what's happening. So again there, the second liberation in my view, where multi-party democracy was betrayed. Now, fast forward to 2007, 2008, you saw what happened. Now, come to this new administration of KK, and that's why I'm justifying the use of the word political conmanship and ignorance by Gachagua. And by the way, when Gachagua now speaks like that, he actually speaks on behalf of government, Yeah, so even Ruto, actually, why is Ruto quite silent about this issue? He should be able to speak about the fact that, he can correct his, because this is...
But he spoke. He actually said this is a government of every Kenyan. That is why Rigiji came back again and said, yes, you are the president of all Kenyans. But me, I'm the leader of UDA. Wewe shughulikia nchi, mimi nashughulikia watu wa UDA.
That's a divided government.
That's already a divided government.
Messaging should be very consistent. And remember, people didn't really elect Rigathi. People elected Ruto. And so when we talk about a country being a company, we need a serious rebuttal from the president.
Exactly.
And by the way, this is not a joke.
Yeah, it's a serious issue.
It's a serious social issue that can actually lead the country into disintegration and political unrest.
And let me tell you, Daktari, let me just finalize my point about political ignorance of Gachagua, Rigathi. You see, this is a man, in my view, who has not even read Article 132 of the Constitution. Or 132 or 132, yeah.
Or the Constitution in its entirety.
Yes, or the Constitution in its entirety. First of all, he needs to know, right from Article 1, simple, the sovereignty of this country does not vest in Mr. Gachagua or in the government of the day. It's in the people of the Republic of Kenya.
It's a delegated duty.
And the government belongs to all of us in equal measure. And when we're exercising our choices during an electioneering period, we're actually exercising a constitutional democratic right. After the election, you are now given the mandate to form the government, which is clearly specified in chapter 9 or 8, about chapter 9, chapter 8. How do you form a government? Now, I know it's difficult, for example, to balance, to say that let's have the face of every Kenyan in government. But there is a formula we gave when we were writing this country's constitution in Article 132. Where we say that in forming the national executive, which is now the government, it must reflect the ethnic and regional face of the country. We say that you must have a maximum of 22 cabinet positions. Now, if you are truly a leader, a national leader, and that's why I'm saying Rigiji is very ignorant, and so is this government. You could easily pick 22 different cabinet secretaries from 22 different tribes in this country. Okay? That makes the 44 tribes of Kenya, including the Asian community that was admitted just not long ago.
And the Chinese.
No, the Chinese. Bado. Unless they also admit us as a tribe in China, that one we will oppose. Then the second phase, now, the second phase of forming the national executive is the principal secretaries. Again, you can follow the same formula. And let me tell you, you can easily have the face of Kenya if you are truly a leader who cares about your country, who cares about the people. And it is so wrong, like Dr. Ria said, it's so wrong. And I think we should not accept this. And we should condemn it in the strongest terms possible. You cannot tell me that, and this government, I'm sorry, I'm passionate about this. It's taking us back to the time of Kanu. This was the language of Kanu era. That, remember Mzee Moi, may his soul rest in eternal peace, used to say, kama huko Kanu, hakuna maendeleo.
Ati serikali kuna wenyewe.
Serikali kuna wenyewe. So I think for me is actually this kind of talk, reckless talk coming from by the Rigiji is just a heartbeat away from being our president. We pray nothing happens to William Ruto, but should anything happen to William Ruto, you can imagine this guy can be our president. That is the reality, Bitok. There are governors who perished and their deputies took over by
including his own governor,
including his own brother.
Regard his own governor of Nyeri in 2017.
But even his brother, when his brother died, the deputy became. So imagine, and you're not saying Ati Ruto will die.
Things happen.
But death is a reality as well. It can happen. Or he can even resign, by the way. Or he can go cuckoos, and when he's at a mental case.
You can go chicken.
So Rigathi will take. And imagine now if Rigathi is going to be our president. I'm seeing anarchy. Because like somebody was saying, how can you, for example, go to Luo Nyanza, where Raila symbolizes the kingpin? How can you go to certain parts of this country?
Okay.
In Turkana, where I come from, I think there's an ODM governor. Yes. Jeremiah Lomurka is an ODM governor.
Yes.
No. Now, is he telling us that we in Turkana will not get our portion of our national cake? Which is in the constitution, by the way. The chapter 11, the devolution. So this is a reckless, ignorant, fakeless, I don't know how many words I can use,
to describe.
Yes.
And Doc, let me just finalize. And you see, this is what has triggered now the kind of language, for example, someone like Raila used against Rigiji. He called him takataka, basically rubbish. And when you look at this, I'm a father of teenager. And I'm thinking, these kids now these days they watch this news. Yes. They can go to. They're doing things like leadership courses. So which means they actually go to social media. They will look. So they will wonder, why do two old men talk the way they talk? My daughter has asked me questions about some political leaders. So what example are we giving to our children when we speak like this?
Okay. You had something to say, Dr. Komolo?
Yeah, I just need to emphasize that it has not reached a point of non-redemption. It can be redeemed.
Yes.
Yes, I think the Kenya Kwanza government needs to get its acts in order. By the way, the most disillusioned with people in the country are Kenya Kwanza supporters. It's not the opposite side.
Okay.
Because they expected a lot of substance from the promises and they're not seeing deliverable results. So I think it has not reached a point where we can't redeem this situation. Typically, governments deliver. If a serious government delivers major issues within the first 6 months, so they have about a month to go. And one of those things they should just deliver is cohesion. And to deliver cohesion by telling off people, including, by the way, their own MPs, telling off the president, the deputy, where they are going wrong. For example, they should have told them off on this short list of cars. The kind of people who have been shortlisted, you get a feeling, why promise the youth that they're coming in? If you shortlist
we'll get right to that.
People with serious, questionable background, why do you need cars if doctors are not employed, for example? There are very serious issues here, and we should start telling them off, and it should start internally by Kenya Kwanza supporters first, so that the kind of shapes up, becomes more respectful, but importantly delivers on the mandate. Because remember, he's not the president. Yes, and he should not be speaking and taking the news away from the president. At the moment, in every meeting they are in, he's actually more listened to than the president.
Never turn your master.
Last point Bitok I want to make, which is related to now, because Rigiji,
we move from that.
Rigiji has now brought us into beginning to analyze actually even the formation of this government and some of the things outside the formation of government. For example, it is now suspect that this is actually going to be a very dictatorial government that will not serve the interest of Kenyans. And it started this way. during the nomination process for cabinet secretaries, we know that some of those cabinet secretaries have been accused of serious offenses, including murder, rape, and even one of them admitted of 33-something cases. Okay?
Yes. He is worth $1 billion, and most of them are claims from the government from cases that are yet to be paid.
Yes. So the question is, and we saw almost a quick withdrawal of those cases, which means this government is not even respecting the independence, for example, of DPP. But I also blame DPP. When DPP formed the opinion that Aisha Juma should face charges of murder, or Linturi of rape, and many others, then that time, and I remember we explained here the process of investigating a crime. You commit a crime, you are a suspect. DCI investigates. They transfer that file to DPP. DPP analyzes it against the law and then returns back the file to DCI or National Police and says, now charge this person. We are happy there is sufficient evidence to actually sustain a charge and to convict. Then when this government came, all those cases were dropped. So this is a government, this government is likely to be a den of thieves, and criminals. I'm sorry to use those terms because, on one hand, they were accused of serious offenses before the law, before courts of law. But all of a sudden, they have been cleaned up. Somebody somewhere is calling the shots. And for me, it cannot be Rigiji, it can only be number one.
Okay, all right. Moving on quickly from Rigiji. Now, Raila Odinga has declared, or has actually given a warning shot to the government that in the next 14 days, they are going to start a mass action. The next 14 days are going to kick off a mass action. And the president has also responded and said that you're not going to have it easy. The full force of the law will take effect. Now, in the spirit of Sheria Wiki and the politics of the day, what do you guys make out of that mass action that that Raila Odinga position that Raila Odinga is promising the government?
I mean, as somebody who's more of a liberal commentator, more of a liberal lawyer, I support every form of political activity so long as they're non-violent. And I also believe that the role of political parties and political players is to sustain political activity throughout, not during the electioneering period alone. So if you look at it that way, then you start to realize that perhaps what Azimio are doing is helping Kenya to democratize further by sustaining political debate, and importantly, then holding the government to account. There's this very wrong narrative that the government should only be held accountable, the opposition should only function through formal structures, that is to mean majority, minority side in parliament, within those structures defined in the constitution. But I think that there's a role for those of you like you and I who are not in parliament, we are not MCS, but we are stakeholders in this, so regard this company, to be able to criticize the government. And that is partly why we are here. Partly why we are here in the morning, to be able to present an alternative view and hopefully criticize the government positively. So I see mass action as an effort to further our democratic space, which we should not allow, by the way, to shrink even for a minute. But the second one, which I suspect is more important, is the global trend. Over the last about 5-6 years, populist governments have been elected in Brazil, US, UK, and even in Kenya with the hustlers narrative. That's a very deceptive description of anyone whose father was a chief, a police officer, or a teacher like myself, can easily, in my village back home in Homa Bay, can easily be described as a dynasty. Yet my father was just a P2 teacher, kind of that. So it's a very deceptive populist argument. All these governments that I've described, which came into power through populism, ended up collapsing. The reason being they could not sustain the masses that took them to power and that they overpromised. So it's very important to notice that the Azimio campaigns will lead us to a point where the very hustlers will start questioning whether the agenda they were promised were real. And you're talking about a substantial chunk of highly educated Form 4 university graduates who actually understand and who can process information outside the mainstream media, And so if you don't counter Azimio rallies with substantive delivery, then you're going to, in about 1-2 years, you're actually going to have people who don't want to listen to the president at all. Because already they have, for your information, they've already dismissed Rigathi. They have dismissed most of the ministers. They see them as just giving empty promises. The only person still holding them together is the president. So they must, the Kenya Kwanza government must go a step further and deliver. And by the way, I believe in the idea of face of Kenya, but practically you can't have everyone. With those limited positions in cabinet and principal secretaries and this unconstitutional thing called CAS, you can't have everyone, but you can make an effort to bring everyone. And you see, part of the struggle that Azimio is now going to redefine is how to redistribute national resources. And the best embodiment of natural resources employment in public service. Yes, the concern is that Rift Valley Central is taking everything. And you see, that's not a very sustainable narrative if the president and his team do not come together to actually engage the opposition. Daktari, I believe that there's need for some limited reforms, particularly to further bolster, support devolved units, but also the fight against corruption. Kenya Kwanza government does not even use the word corruption. Yet it is the biggest thing in the country. So, and of course, electoral reforms, particularly embracing technology. Yeah? So instead of allowing Azimio to, go all over, because they also have resources to go all over, regardless of who is funding them, I think the structures they have is enough to fund them. It's very important that the president tones down and brings them to the table. They have a conversation on some package of reforms. And that one probably will make another positive step towards inclusivity and democratizing the country and all that. But if they allow them to go ahead, and remember they have the right, Professor Kidiki was also my lecturer, Raymond Komolo is from my village. I know if they try to use the police, they will fail. So the better they engage, but let me allow Dr. Aukot.
Yeah, the reason they will never use the word corruption, yes, Daktari, because in this show we deconstructed the word corruption, even in our own mother tongues.
Oh, okay.
It's actually theft of public resources.
Okay. Yes, that's right.
So there's nothing called corruption.
There's nothing called corruption, even in the Luo. Even in the Luo.
Kuo. That's called Kuo in the Luo.
But is it corruption? I'm a thief. Thief.
No. Actually, you're right. There's no word corruption in the law.
Yeah. Even
it's more or less, It's more or less.
Kalenjin, we tested here. So we have since agreed here, even this show, there's no term called corruption. So it's theft of public resources.
That's more direct.
Wheezy. but that is how you can quickly relate to it.
Yes.
If you say, I'm building a hospital, and this is the money I'm giving, and you are not able to account for that money, where did the money go? You did not corrupt them.
You stole it.
Yeah. So a lot of these people, even with their own admission in government, that I was charged of this, so surely, they're using the word corruption.
But I think there's something that has not come out very clearly, even as I give it to you, Dr. Hari. Komolo, so you think the mass action is justified, even by law?
Yes, of course. Of course. It's actually, as Dr. Aukot said earlier off air, it's actually being legitimized by the government's own conduct.
Okay.
If you say you're a company and shareholders, and you're speaking in Kericho, and you're appointing specific, and shareholders are so and so, and of course you mean Dr. Ekuru from Turkana and Komolo from Abe are not shareholders.
So you are in for mass action.
It's a straightforward question. Okay. What Raila and the team are doing is perfectly within the law and perfectly within the constitution. It is actually the exercise of their political rights, to demonstrate, to picket, to all that. I think the only thing I will say is that what are the issues they're actually putting on the table? Because I think it's not about incitement to violence. I think they should be able to actually criticize this government, rightfully so, based upon the promises they made during the electioneering period. And if they don't, because remember, the goalposts are also changing, Doc. At one point we were told, give us 100 days, you'll see some changes. We didn't see those changes in 100 days. Now it's moving to 1 year. in 1 year, and then secondly, give us time. Again, I'm sorry, we cannot run away from Rigiji. Rigiji says, we don't have money. Mukitaka kutulima, we'll give you our buttocks. You can whip us. If you want to whip us, whip us. Here are our buttocks. I mean, so you can see now, instead of the rosy political promises, they are now saying, you know what, I don't think we are able to achieve certain things. You have to give us time. Then now there is a confession that actually we don't have money. Now, the people who are confessing that we do not have money are not strangers in government. Rigiji was in government. First of all, even as an advisor, as a PA to Uhuru Kenyatta. President Ruto now has been in government for the last 10 years as deputy, as the presidency, not even, let's just call it what it is, as the presidency, part of the presidency. And he's even been there as a cabinet. Yeah, all those people. So these people cannot tell us that they are strangers in government. So they know the state of this government. What they could have told us at election time is that, this is what is in government currently, and this is how we are going to fix it. Yes, they came up with a plan. Yeah, what they call the plan, and they infused the word, hustler, bottom up, and the idea was now to dupe the general public, to give them hope, false hope that we will do some sort of political miracle. Now that they are in government, okay, the goalposts are changing. Now we are being told the government of Kenya is a company. Yeah, mimi kazi yangu ni kuangalia nani yako kwa laini. Nikiona we kama au kutusupport na kurudisha huko nyuma. Hiyo ni kazi yangu. So now that has given justification to what Raila and team are going to do, because Raila and team are doing the right thing in saying, calling government to account from a political point of view. Remember, there is also a lot of compromising of members of parliament from various regions. And people are saying, and I've heard some very false narratives, and I'm even disappointed with people like Orengo, Senior Council Orengo, when he says, I have to work with the government of the day because I have to deliver for my people. Everybody is saying, you must go and suck up to the government for you to get development. Development is not a gift. It's a right of each and every Kenyan, and we specify this in chapter 11. So when Raila and the rest are actually saying that we will demonstrate, it's perfectly the right. It's Article 38 of the Constitution of Kenya. So you can't fault them. You cannot fault them because now, like we said earlier, there is now emerging justification why people must revolt against a government, a populist government. Because William Ruto's government, and I know, I've said this before, I've been insulted, but I'll repeat it. It is said, and maybe statisticians can prove us wrong, Doc, it is said there are 30 million eligible adults in Kenya, about 30 million. Now, those 30 million people are eligible to vote and to be able to make a choice about the kind of government that they want. Now, 8 million refused to even to register. Okay? 22 million went to register. At voting time, 8 million said we don't see the option. We don't see the use of choosing a government. 14 million went to vote. Now, 7.1 million voted for Ruto. 6-point-something million voted for Raila. That is 14 million. So if you had 14 million, if you had the people who do not agree with Kenya Kwanza, the 6-point-something million that did not vote, for Ruto, had the 8 million who said we do not see a choice, that is 14 million Kenyans who are saying we don't recognize this government. Now, if you had even the 8 million who said we don't see the point of registering because who are we going to vote anyway, that is 22 million. I know it sounds very unpopular and maybe politically incorrect in some quarters, but I'm sorry to say, by definition of what legitimacy is, for you to be able to enjoy legitimacy, if you only garner 7.1 million in a possible vote of 22 million or plus 30 million, you're actually a minority government, if you ask me. And to be honest with you, you do not even enjoy, I can say, substantive legitimacy to be able to, and that's why Rigiji are now saying this is a company. And that is because of that behavior and that conduct. Yes, there has to be political demonstration. And it's within the law, and they are not, reinventing the wheel. We've been there, and so I don't think we can blame Raila and team. The only thing I'm concerned about, I just don't like the idea of incitement to violence, because at the end of the day, it is the common mwananchi who will suffer. Not those top-notch guys. After all, some of them are still receiving salaries anyway. Those members of parliament from that divide, they are still receiving salaries.
A lot of funds.
Yeah,
and the ODM and all that.
ODM got 6 billion, but now they're going to use Mwananchi. So I would rather they put issues on the table. And I think Doc made a very substantial, very, very important point. Yes, it's not possible to have everybody in government, and I agree. But I think if you deliver the promises you made on health, on education, security, and all that, me, I wouldn't care. Even if you put a dog in as a minister, so long as that dog is able to deliver. Well, not just backing. So long as that dog is able to deliver on the health promise I was given at election period, even if you put all members of your tribe. Like, for example, Raila, I think, did some sort of analysis in one of his speeches. He asked a question, why are there 9 Kalenjins in cabinet? Those are fundamental questions to ask.
9 Rift Valley.
9 from Rift Valley. So
it's a total of 14 Rift Valley, Mount Kenya.
Na unasema wewe ni rais wa kila mtu. Rigiji has been saying what? Watu wa mlima.
But by the way, there's no Turkana in cabinet.
But now the big question also.
Well, we have a PS, Jeffrey Kaituko.
You've always had a cabinet member.
Oh yeah, not always.
You also have Nanok also in State House.
Is he?
That's a very minor position. That's a very minor position. Not worth discussing.
But the big question is, guys, these gentlemen, these ladies and gentlemen in Azimio are saying that they're going to mass action, or they are demonstrating because of the state of the economy and the cost of living. But then again, you are causing disruption, because the disruption is the same economy. At what point do we say
how are they disrupting the economy? Not Bitok. Let's be very clear. How are they disrupting the economy?
So if you go to the streets and you are demonstrating and you disrupt business and movements in a city, for instance, Nairobi, get to the CBD and very few things about. I remember even when they were praying on Friday, I was actually going to Pangani for a meeting. Just exiting that route alone to cross over to that side of the road was a big headache. I stayed in traffic almost 2 hours. So you were complaining about the same economy, but you want it paralyzed. Is there better ways? These guys have members of parliament who will sit in parliament. Is it possible to prosecute their issues differently and be part of the solution, not part of the problem?
They are actually part of the solution. First, it's probably not a good idea to talk about members of parliament in Kenya. If you've been around enough to study them and study other members of parliament around the world, these are a bunch of people who are just bought, not worth discussing on a serious show like yours. The bigger point is that the word disruption can be used negatively as well. I think what Azimio is doing is not disruption. Going to Jivaji on a Wednesday, and you don't force people to come. Most of those who went there are largely jobless young men, and talking for about 1-2 hours. And then, of course, the same is shared across social media and all that. It's not disruption, it's a political activity. They hold political events at designated points. They mobilize their people using channels that are legitimate. And then they speak on issues that are also legitimate. There are legitimate concerns like cost of living, like unemployment, like corruption in government, like reforms of IBC and all that. So I don't think they are in way disrupting the country.
Look, I only have a slight variation to that. I just tend to think that they are going to the street too soon. Okay, I think they're going to the street too soon. In my view, I wish they could have even waited for at least 1 year to end. And meanwhile, like Bitok is suggesting, maybe now poke also from the representative point of view in parliament. But now when that, I think, is not coming through, now we take to the streets. Because yes, there's an element of disruption. Because if you've seen this multitude of people marching on the streets, I'll definitely close my shop. No, I'll not be selling anything. But I think, for me, I find it too soon, but also I think the lingo that's being used. For example, what does calling for the reform IBC now? And yet we are talking about the election in 2027. Yeah. So I think for me, I also find that the Azimio brigade are not getting the issues they want to put. I mean, they are not prioritizing. I disagree with
Ekuru. The US had their so-called midterm elections in November last year. That's about now 4 or 5 months ago. Within 3 weeks, Donald Trump announced his candidacy for the presidency of the U.S. Last week or so, the former governor of South Carolina, Nikki Haley, also convened a rally and announced her candidacy. In other words, political activity has started. Israel also had the elections around the same time of forming the government, and Netanyahu tried to change the constitution to bring about reforms to capture the judiciary. His immediate predecessor, somebody called Yair Lapid, has been leading demonstrations in Jerusalem, in Tel Aviv, and by the way, these two countries are 10 times plus richer than Kenya in terms of the money people take home per month. That's really what matters. So if these serious democracies are sustaining political activities, what is so special about Kenya holding a rally in Kisumu?
I like the word you used, serious democracies. Yes. So can you say we are a serious democracy? Because to be honest with you,
evolves.
Yeah?
No, you don't just wake it up in the morning and become a democracy.
Doc, with all due respect, you yourself you have said in this show just a while ago, it's not worth speaking about our members of parliament. Yes. In a serious show like this, yes. Meaning even the kind of character of those politicians actually demonstrate the fact that actually we are not. I mean, when you talk about a serious democracy, apart again, I guess apart from Trump, who I think I find very uncouth and and just a racist in a way. Yeah? I see a lot of decorum even in those demonstrations. Look at even the language people use, and by the way, you're talking about countries where they don't commercialize elections. Yeah, like in our case, ours is one of the most expensive elections in the world. Yeah. So I think there is a way in which those people behave themselves. Earlier on we started with the discipline and character of. It doesn't mean there aren't goons in America, like Trump tried to organize an attack on the Capitol in January. But we are also talking about countries that are actually delivering certain, and they reduce, for example, their political discourse to certain things. If it's infrastructure, stem cell research, can we ever talk
it's about party-based?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Party-based, but also issue-based.
Yes.
Largely. Even when you have got, say, 20, what interested candidates say in a party. Somehow they reduce them in a certain
predictable way of elimination.
But those ones who also leave, who are not nominated, end up supporting that particular candidate because they believe in party politics. Yes. Now look at our character here. Let's look at, just to say so that we can, I don't think there are better comparison, but we can borrow. Ruto started a party called UDM. Before long, I think he didn't even use UDM, by the way. Actually, they were in ODM. Then went to UDM, URP, Jubilee, now UDA. I think there could be another party. Now, really, can you tell me these are very serious politicians? Raila, the same thing. I don't know, NPK, LP, whatever. I even lose count.
Yes.
So really, in terms of nurturing democracy, democracy can also be nurtured through certain discourses. So I don't know. I mean, I feel that I still feel because of the character of our politics, Dr. Maybe the ODM brigade, in my view, could have waited a little bit. Kidogo kama ni 1 year, but continue because they still have forums anyway. They still have forums. Because these are politicians who, without demonstrating capture of a region and a tribe, an ethnic tribe, they're actually nothing.
Bitok, power abhors vacuum. Immediately you leave a government to be on its own and trust members of parliament who are vulnerable to being bought. But the Salasi has just shared his payslip. You can see he's taking home 97,000. And people in Mumias West require him to attend every funeral and all that. So they are very vulnerable. So immediately you leave that to the formal structures that we were talking about. Then you are taking back Kenya back to where Tanzania probably is, and or Uganda and all that. What you need is sustained political engagement through vibrant media, as you invite us here, through political rallies, so long as they are structured. Yeah. And I, by the way, I've said elsewhere that we'd better have this up on the weekends as opposed to weekdays. So I see this in a positive light. Political parties in Kenya, by the way, have been a victim of ODM chaos.
What happened to you?
I'd rather leave that to...
Ulifanyia ile kitu sema. No. Just say it. We want to hear. We love stories here. Give us a story.
I've been a victim. Duncan knows very well.
What happened?
The weaknesses in the political structure and the capture in the party. I theorize it as abuse of monopoly. You know, even Nakumat and all these brands abused monopoly and they collapsed. So political parties like ODM will at a particular point implode on their own. Because the more you abuse people, the more you don't handle stakeholders, including aspirants, the more people go elsewhere. And you can see this revolt in Luo Nyanza. These MPs, there's a history to it. Yeah. Ask them keenly how they got the ODM ticket. Are they still hungry over something? Did they overspend? I mean, Professor Jenda was my lecturer. I know he's not just a person to wake up and do things he's doing. So political parties in Kenya is probably also another thing you need to create a show for it. But importantly, we should not use the weakness of political parties to then disabuse political events. We should try to reform them or make it so plural such that you don't even have to be a member of ODM to be a member of parliament. You see? And that I buy the idea that that's an evolving process. How you evolve it is through political engagement, managing transitions, because even these party leaders will at a particular point have to go one way or the other. You see? So anyway, personally, I support Azimio rallies.
Right.
I don't attend them, but I support them.
All right. So that I can get back to the comments, I can get to look at the comments. Now, there's something very fundamental that Daktari Ekuru was raised, and it is about the issues that we canvass around. You know, you've spoken about the countries that are having demonstrations and all that. And we can create a comparison of the issues that are being raised. You know, well, yes, all these actions are sanctioned or allowed in the Constitution. The question is, are the issues that we are raising substantial enough? For instance, the call for mass action. What are the specific solid issues that we need to address? Is it just about going to the streets because the Constitution allows? What are some of the things that we could rip from against what we are demonstrating against in government? What are really the fundamental solid issues that we are seeing in these demonstrations, Dr. Ekuru?
You know, to be honest, for me, that's what I was saying. Whereas I support any exercise of a political mass action or democratic right, because it's within the law. I'm struggling to actually see what is the focus. For example, and like I pointed out, the call to restructure IEBC at this time is actually IEBC at this time the problem of Kenyans. It is not. As a matter of fact, you remember when we were pushing for the Punguza Mizigo, we had actually said we need a minimum of 3 and maximum of 5 commissioners and to work part-time. Because again, see, why is there so much fight against IEBC? The reason ODM or not Azimio, by the way, which is not a political party, by the way, strictly speaking, by dint of law, it's not really a political party, even though Kenyans were lied about it. And we tried to argue this in court, although, again, we were told we are wrong. Azimio is not a political party. So the reason Azimio is so agitated about this issue of IEBC, which is the reason I'm saying it's a misplaced issue, is because of just that one thing. The division before the former IEBC commissioners. One team was to be captured so that the other can announce one of them. Because it was centered on the question of who announces who as president-elect. And that will have plunged this country into chaos. So it's some sort of a bitter pill Azimio guys are still hosting because they were not able to get Cherera or Nani was not able to be kidnapped and murdered. Yeah, like the president said, which is, for me, is also something we have set under the carpet, but it's a very, very serious allegation for which Ruto must be taken to task. Who are these? Because he said he knew there was an elaborate plan to kidnap and murder Chebukati so that Cherera could now announce Raila president-elect. And that's why they are still hanging on the question of IEBC. But for me, I'm thinking that is water under the bridge. Mm-hmm. You know, that is something that if they organize their members of parliament, they could even call for an inquiry into the conduct of the 2022 election. Mm-hmm. I like the issue on the cost of living because it's real. Yeah? But I also don't like the idea that we want to march to State House. again, that's chaotic because that has also been said. For me, even if they focus today on the cost of living alone, tell us exactly how you're implementing, and hold them on the timelines they said, the timelines of 100, and also look at the plan, and maybe even the choice of government. I think I like also that issue, that the way this government is being constituted, there are 2 tribes are dominating, So why will you have 9 people from, say, Rift Valley or Kalenjin Rift Valley in cabinet? Why, I don't know, is it 7 from...
Well, we will retain specific PSS. There are very competent PSS like Julius Joan and many others who are implementing critical reforms. Why only retain PSS from your village?
And the other issue, in my view, Bitok, of course, the choice of government should be an issue on the table, how it was constituted, because, again, relating to the character of our politics and how we see government formation, of course, people bring those issues. Why is there no, balancing of sorts? Not equality. You can never achieve equality. Equality is an ideal. But some level of equity in the way in which you form government. That is an issue that should be questioned. And of course, delivery. Delivery on the promises. And that for me should be a constant issue on the table, even if it means, daily political rallies to pile pressure on the government to deliver on their plan. Because like I said earlier, we were told a lot about bottom up. Now that thing, we don't hear about it anymore. We don't hear anymore about the plan. In fact, sometimes I even doubt the soundness of people like David Ndi, who are supposed to be sound economic.
Thank you. I've been doubting that as well.
To be honest with you,
yeah.
I mean, if he was really a sound economist as such, why wasn't he given a key ministry like, say, Treasury, to be able to actually now employ?
And the other day was justifying why we are going to IMF. But
and I'll throw you the same question to you, Dr. Komolo. And you've stated very clearly that you are in support of the Azimio rallies. You don't go, but yes, you support it, either on principle
and rallies everywhere in the world
law.
For democracy.
Yes, all right.
Flourish.
So, on what issues? What is the value proposition? On what issues? On what serious issues or what solid issues are you supporting the demos on and the call for mass action? Or what is likely to be fixed?
Political rallies in every country are context specific. In the US now, it's about the next presidential elections, party primaries, and all that. In Kenya, something that's not coming out clearly, but I think at the core of Azimio's debate is what they call electoral injustice. Yes, basically the reform around IBC. The cost of living issues, education reforms and all this, I think are secondary to Azimio's main agenda. So the bigger question that, professionals and civil society groups and of course the government should be asking is whether there is a legitimate need for electoral reforms in Kenya and at what stage. Of course, there's the issues of boundaries that should be addressed, and boundaries can't be an equation of the government alone. There are the bigger issues of how IBC will conduct elections. Actually, they tried in the last elections. How can they be facilitated to improve on their performance, particularly on terms of technology? And these countries we have been referring to here will normally announce their results, including Brazil, which has 120 million voters, within hours. Yes, why is Kenya taking 7 days and going faithful at bombers, bring choir and all that? Why do you need choir to announce results of 14 million voters?
To serenade you.
Yeah, that's really what's causing perceptions of rigging and all that.
Why should be a ceremony?
Yeah. So that, and why should ambassadors be at the tallying center? Ambassadors of 100+ countries. The bigger question is which kind of reforms? So we should be talking about which kind of reforms, and that is something the government.
But the hypocrisy in the call for IBC reforms, for instance, and we've argued this several times with Dr. Yes. The 4 years of handshake. The handshake primarily the same argument we're having today. The foundation of the handshake was to fix IBC. For 4 or 5 good years, nobody never thought about fixing it or giving it solutions. Of course, they thought about the commissioners, which now is in a contest. The commissioners are under inquiry and all that. Now, the hypocrisy of calling for IBC reform, and actually we've heard about some of the demands, is to revert back to manual. The earlier demand was we go technology so that we can fix human interaction.
We must
so now they are saying the servers are bad things. The server ni mbaya. We go back to manual. So what is it? I mean, the hypocrisy in the demand.
I'll be very honest with you. You know, I had the opportunity to actually select the first IBC as the chairman of the selection panel. And what we did, and at some point, I think, I don't know whether I'll be breaking the law. I am thinking of publishing that report so that Kenyans can read.
You should. Mali Mefika.
Mali Mefika, I think we will publish that report myself because we asked government, publish this report so that Kenyans can see how we meticulously followed the law, how we conducted our interviews in public, recording Nini, how we selected these people, the justification for selecting those guys. Doc, the truth about the agitation around IBC relates to government. And it relates to another bigger topic, which is state capture by a few individuals. And it relates to looting more than actually service delivery. So you need a weak IEBC or IEBC that is compromised so that then it can install you in government so that you can continue capturing the state and to loot it.
And you can also win contracts.
Yes. And you can also, yes. Because controlling IEBC, first of all, you're controlling billions. Bitok, in the last election, we did an analysis with you here.
Sorry.
We said that look, the kits, the Kim's kit, which we procured from France at a cost of 3.8 billion Kenya shillings, we pumped into the economy of France 3.8 billion. Then we went to a desert country called Dubai, that does not even grow a forest, a type of tree.
And does not conduct elections.
Yes, and we gave it 2.5 billion to print our papers. That is a whooping, 6.3 billion that we send out there. Yeah? Okay? Now, why do we do this? And you saw, immediately after those tenders were announced, warfare started. Legal battles about who wins the tender. So, IBC is also an avenue for stealing our money.
State capture.
Yeah? And that's because the political class is interested in that kitty. They're not even interested in IBC, by the way. Hata wanaweza kuweka ng'ombe pale. So long as that ng'ombe can be led to the river to drink the water they want. Yeah? So IBC, there's a connection between IBC, formation of government, and the looting of the state resources.
Okay. But let me clarify something.
Okay, please.
You know, I don't agree with the government. I didn't agree with the government of President Uhuru on many things. My first disagreement was on how they treated Miguna. So on serious human rights and reform package, I actually don't agree with them. The closest I came to agreeing with them was some element of unity, but that also dissipated when they sidelined Ruto. But 2 wrongs does not make a right. The fact that they try to capture IBC is not reason not to have a conversation about how to reform IBC going forward. And I think that reform should be less about personnel and more about technology that disrupt this whole idea.
And it's institutionalizing IBC to be an institution.
It's totally institutionalized.
It's not.
I mean, Dr. Ekuru just said the real issue. It is institutionalized, theoretically independent, but yes, theoretically independent.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's
captured.
very theoretical.
Yeah. So it's, in terms of institution and augmenting in law, I don't think there's anything that can be done beyond what has been done. The issue is capture, and the way you disrupt capture is now embracing technology.
Okay. All right.
But in my view, it also boils down to the leadership of a country, especially the top leadership, so that you have to be a truly truthful man, not the truthful man of Gachagua. You have to be a truly truthful person to say, I've now formed the government. I'm not interested in controlling it. I want to give them independence. I mean, we came closer to that. I mean, we were closer to that fairly during the Kibaki administration, where we actually saw some delivery. There was no apparent interference. In fact, if you look at Ruto's cabinet today, listen, we like to prophesy in this show.
Yes.
These are both yes men and women. And let me tell you, it will be a failed government. This is my prophecy.
A good number of them are my friends, particularly the PSS, some of my classmates. And I know in another space they will deliver, but in the docket they've been given and circumstances they were given, I'm very sure they're going to fail. And by the way, it won't take 2 years.
And the sad thing, Doc, what I've studied, because I've tried to draw politics, including running for the highest office. One thing that I've come to realize about our country, because of how the government of the day does not facilitate an environment within which you can actually, not even deliver, you can actually maybe be economically independent. So a lot of people who go into government are actually looking more about the check.
Mortgages.
Check and power than actually delivery. So they will never do anything independent. In fact, there's a former PS who told me he was fired. I will not mention his name. He was fired because every Friday you will get a directive, deliver 10 million. 10 million. He said, no way. How do I even justify this delivery? So you find most guys, they like that comfort, power. So that today, you can find even a minister or a PS who cannot carry an envelope because there's an askari who grabbed it. So people become intoxicated with that power thing, And therefore, for them, delivery is not. It's more about worshipping the appointing authority. That's why you can even see, even when I don't know whether you followed the trend. During the appointment, you saw the tweet that was done by everyone. They're all similar. They were told you have to plant this tweet. I want to thank His Excellency. Yes, the appointee. I want to thank. Yes. Go back to them.
I lost that. But I saw quite a number that were quite similar.
Similar. It was one tweet.
The same picture.
The only difference was their name, but the constant one was His Excellency the President. William Ruto.
And clearly the quality and
but His Excellency is constant. You should have called him Excellency.
No. But look at it this way. Let me tell you, one of the things that we really need to demystify, in my view, is this issue of titles. No, because even today in a ward, the wife of an MC has become the first lady of the ward. I'll tell you. That's true. And must be referred as such.
That's true. And must have a front row seat.
First lady.
And they must have a front row seat. That's true.
I've attended a meeting in counties where, to be honest with you, the wife of the governor is revered.
Yes. Yes.
Her Excellency, the First Lady.
That is understood, but MCA doesn't.
Even governor is not justified.
No. Even governor. Why should governors also use the title Excellency?
Why? Surely.
Why should they? I would rather the title His Excellency should be reserved to the president.
Okay. All right. Let's look at the comments.
Honorable. Like somebody will say, I am Honorable Ekuru Aukot in a village.
Yes.
Do you know in democracies, and there's a book I think I may have to lend you to read.
Please.
Parliamentary discussion in the UK. Do you know the title Honorable should only be used on the floor of the House when you actually submit it?
It's a formal title.
It's a formal title. When you are out there, you should call yourself Ekuru Aukot MP or a member of Parliament for such a region. But these people, if you don't call them honorable,
they're skinny.
Yeah, my friend.
Looking at the comment section, looking at the comments on YouTube. Good morning, Gerald, and the panel that is Karen Juguna. Good to see you, Karen. Good morning, Gerald. You are doing great and opening light to our people and society on their rights and creating awareness. I wish you welcome Mutai Alfred Mujumbe. Mwambia tuongeleshe, tell him to send us a WhatsApp message. And we'll look at that, right? David Akero, countries like Singapore are flourished because citizens take personal responsibility. Our software needs updating. We deserve the leaders we elect because we are corrupt and dishonest. I think it was on our social engineering. Daniel Kimani Bitok, we all know what this means. It's not about the people who will attend those mass actions. The language, the tone, the characters, they are after power. They want to be incorporated in the eating table. Nothing is there for Kenyans, to say Mukweli. Karen Juguna, absolutely. It's not even about them, but about him, Raila Odinga. Because even in the past, he's been using mass action. But in the end, he abandons his partners and gets to feast on the cake alone. Daniel Kimani, very Juguna. Remember, after he joined Uru, he rubbished the calls on the cost of living. Quoting Raila Odinga, wengine wanabweka, bei iko juu. The call for mass action is insincere, founded on ill motive and selfishness. That's on YouTube. Look at the comments on Facebook as well. Abraham Muge, mass action is a matter of democratic rebellion. As the Mia must stop this. We want something like the Eric Omondi's one. It will help a lot. Albando Lenyo, good morning to you. Just as tomorrow, change the constitution is the clarion. How many times are we going to change this thing called constitution? Collins Kimtai, Kipsar, good morning team, good morning to you. Randich J. The high cost of living will make me to accept it. That is mass action. Joel Arama, can we define mass action? Okay. Pauline Jerab, good morning. Tackle team, good morning to you. Brian Muge, mass action won't help at all. Shares dance falling from diaspora. Asante sana, apologies. Donisha Collins, good morning. Tackle Gerald Bitok, I always miss out. Karibu sana, umepotea bwana. Nafaa unaamka mapema. Kip Victor, good morning. Gerald Bitok and the panelist Brian Muge. I'm phoning from University of Kabianga, Kericho. We are expecting our president on March 1st to address us, okay? Julius, good morning. Good to see you, Julius. Good morning, Gerald Bitok. I'm on today with you. John Kibor, good morning, Gerald Bitok. Ask the great lawyers to tell us if Raila was sacked by AU or he resigned. Okay. Victor K. Bed, this is your student. Anasema great discussion. Asante ngeno kimati. Good morning. Yes. Anasema you supervisor. Karembo Faith, good morning. Good morning to you. Karembo Faith from Meru. Muma Mutinda, good morning. Good morning. I hope you doing well. Joel Aram, elections issues are easy to resolve, but our politicians are selfish. All right, let's pick on that. First of all, we start by defining what a mass action is. I think that is where we should have started, because clearly a lot of Kenyans don't understand what mass action is. And then there's the issue, of course, Baba and AU. You read the letter, Baba says I resigned earlier.
It depends on who you believe. But normally when you're appointed in diplomatic circles by a government and a new regime comes in, then you expect that there will be changes because it's a fact that the president and Mr. Odinga are not necessarily on the same page. And yet, as in that position, he will be Kenya's high representative in events that the president will from time to time need to attend, or his government represented. So it was the right thing for him to either resign or be sacked or step away or whatever, depending on who you want to believe. Another one is what, which I think is soft landing, what the AU Commission chairperson said, that this role is being taken by a different agency that has now been established and reformed and whatever. But I think that even that new agency must have a head. So there must still be some kind of envoy responsible for infrastructure. But it's the right thing that Mr. Odinga is no longer in that position. We can still have somebody elsewhere from Kenya to head issues of infrastructure, be the ambassador. Remember, Africa is the least interconnected continent in terms of infrastructure and obviously in terms of telecommunication as well. So we really need to emphasize, to have somebody who's the focal point on interconnectivity in Africa, on intra-Africa trade, and that's something we should not take lightly. I think Mr. Odinga should be thanked for doing it for the last 4 years or so. I don't know the definition of mass action or mass protest. In Kenya, it manifests in form of rallies, occasionally violent, particularly during struggle for multi-partyism. There is no reason why a rally should be violent in Kenya at the moment, because there are structures and the laws have been reformed to allow for this event to take place any time of the day and night, by the way. But so long as the designated place, and police no longer have that much power to disrupt them, neither does the government. So I don't know whether those rallies are mass action, but if you take it to the point of, going to State House, invading it, that's now violent protest. And of course, nobody can support things that are leading to violent protests. Civil and it's called violent non-resistance, yes. The way Martin Luther and his team did it. Focusing on issues, yes. You talked earlier about questions of legitimacy. Legitimacy can also be procedural. And Dr. Aukot tried to talk about it here. Obviously, majority of Kenyans, well over 70%, didn't vote for Ruto, including those who decided not to take voters card. If you statistically, you will be talking about 25% or so. But Dr. Aukot and his team wrote a constitution on how to become somebody should rise to the office of president. So procedurally, President Ruto is in office and he has procedural legitimacy. In terms of whether that then leads to substantive legitimacy, I think boils down 100% to how he performs in office, how he delivers on social aspects of his manifesto, how he manages his team without trying to over-intrude or buy out opposition MPs, something he doesn't really need to do because that is unnecessary negative energy, trying to buy opposition MPs. You can still work with them through parties and through parliamentary committees. And obviously, a smart MP like Shakil Shabir will vote with the government in parliament on matters that are of national interest. You can talk to him without appearing to be buying him out and taking away his independence. So that is really the insecurity I see in this government, of course followed by Gachagwa's company approach, which is at the very least very socially exclusive. Their substantive legitimacy will boil down to their performance and how they try to communicate that performance. At the moment, and I've said elsewhere, I think they talk too much. And I think several CSS, 2-3 of them are known to me personally, actually around 5, known to me personally, seem not to understand the mandate of their ministries.
And they should reduce.
Yes.
And they should reduce too much posting on Twitter. Yes. We want to see action.
And remember, it worries me because I know they will serve as ministers for 5, maximum 10 years. Then they will be back on the streets like Dr. Ekuru and I here. It pains me to criticize them in the media. But truth has to be told that we are here to say the truth.
Yes, especially on the tackle. All right, Ekuru.
No, for me, just a quick one. I mean, Dr. has explained mass action, but I think there are 2 keywords there. The word mass and action. So basically, it's a mobilization of groups or multitudes of people within a certain society, but you must mobilize them around an action. Maybe out of occurrence of something, then it sparks mass action. Like, for example, the way we have the Arab Revolution, the Arab Spring. Now even Raila is suggesting mass action, but the action being what? It's a clarion call for something. So they're talking about cost of living. So you must mobilize the masses, sometimes voluntarily or involuntarily. So basically, I'll keep it that simple. So it's basically just mobilization around the issues. And then, of course, what is the action you want done? So those keywords, masses or people, around a clarion call for an action. On Raila Odinga, there are some of those positions, regional positions, I think they rotate. I don't know whether now Kenya has lost has served its period.
This is a new position. The High Commissioner on Infrastructure is a totally new position that I think was created pursuant to a resolution of the AU to focus on integration through infrastructure. And now they're saying it's been taken by Nepal. Used to be independent. Now it's an agency of AU.
But what I know is that some of those positions are very rotational around countries. And if it's your country's time, then your country nominates
somebody.
Remember, there's a time Ambassador Amina Mohammed wanted to be the chairperson of AU because Kenya, I think, was in that, but it required voting. Anyway, I think I want to go to the lesson. What is the lesson we are learning from Raila Odinga having been the envoy in that infrastructure development in Africa? I want to, one of the problems, Dr. I have with us Kenyans generally is very short memory, especially on matters politics. Kenyans are forgetting that in 2007 there was a vicious battle between Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga that even ended up at the 2017, at the Supreme Court. Actually, from 2013 to 2017. And remember, 2013, again, it was Raila Odinga versus Kenyatta in that election. And I remember one of the campaign tools by the then URP and TNA coalition was that this man must retire like Kibaki did if he has to benefit. So Raila and Kalonzo were denied their retirement packages for some time. Up until now, 2018. And in 2017, again, they went into politics. There was that conversation that you will not benefit the same way Kibaki did because Kibaki has retired from politics. You have not. You are still holding party positions. Anyway, now when The handshake happened in March. Odinga's retirement package was reinstated. He was given a job immediately by Uhuru Kenyatta. But the masses that took him to Uhuru Park were still languishing and complaining that the cost of living is high. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Now, the same thing that I'm seeing in terms of... so I just want to remind Kenyans, even as you are being led into this mass action agitation by some of these leaders, you know, eventually the beneficiaries of this is actually these people. Look, William Ruto, Uhuru Kenyatta came very strongly against William Ruto, even supported Raila Odinga. Kenyans are forgetting the number one employee of William Ruto was actually Uhuru Kenyatta. Yes. And he gave him a job on day one. Even before...
In Kasarani.
Even before he left Kasarani. Yeah. He appointed him. That's a job. And this is a man already who is enjoying time package. Why couldn't he appoint another Kenyan? There are so many Kenyans who are eligible. So, Wakenya tunazidi kuchezwa kisiasa. So now let's insist. Even as we are being mobilized around this mass action or whatever, it has to be issues that actually affect our lives. Yeah, it has to be issues that this government promised us, and it must deliver. So even the opposition must be seen to be tasking this government to deliver, in order that their followers can actually benefit or realize those benefits. It cannot be just about them, you know. And by the way, it cannot be on anger also. I see a lot of anger and sort of frustration. Why can't we just have a conversation and dialogue, even with your supporters? But it has to be around the issue, and that's why when we are concerning the word mass action, we are saying yes, use masses of people, but what is the action? What is your clarion call? Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'd say the last week I was to be given. Okay. Producer angalia maneno ya I'd sijui anasema kupata credit. Jola Rama. I think I lose out watu wameanza madeni sahi mapema.
Hata umeanza kuwa kama nini? Kama Kenya Kwanza.
You promise without giving.
I never that interpreted.
Mulituahidi bottom up na sasa tuoni bottom up.
I never that interpreted studio. So you'll have to wait a little bit as I'm trying to fix this. I didn't foresee it's going to be the way they are. All right. So now, how many minutes? 40 minutes past 9 a.m. 40 minutes past 9 a.m. Now, one of the fundamental questions on this around the country, of course, is around elections and IEBC. Now, IEBC is set to be reconstituted. And there's already a conversation and a process around building up the selection panel to constitute the IEBC. Now, there's a Mio side has distanced itself from that process. They are saying they do not accept that selection panel to proceed. And they have said they're not going to engage within that precinct of parliament in fixing IEBC and building up a panel that can nominate these guys. Are we building up again another crisis for 2027? Why is it that we don't want to participate in the spaces of parliament to constitute IEBC? If we are disagreeing, let's disagree within the panel and say, I don't like Komolo for these and these reasons, or Ekuru for these and these reasons. But now, if you remove your contribution from that space and you want to take it to a public space, what is likely to be achieved? Because these guys will proceed. The government will proceed, they will constitute the panel, IEBC will be constituted. We'll get to 2026, elections are coming, and we say we don't want IEBC. How should we move around constituting IEBC?
Dr. Aukot already spoke a lot on this. Ideally, the role of president in appointing a commissioner should be ceremonial. The process of recruitment should be very professional through that panel, and you know, they should even make public the process of scoring the applicants and the eventual winners, and they should of course tell us about their experience and what they bring on board. That's the ideal. The reality is that we are in Kenya, and in Kenya, people think tribally, people think regionally, and also people think alongside state capture. If somehow everyone wants to be in government without a clear agenda on what they're doing in government, including people in their 70s who have retired after becoming governors and all that. So in real politics, there's need for consultation or appearance of consultation. It helps to lower the tension. And you talked about disruption of business. We rather debate here, have people debate here in your studios than on the streets. So to the extent that we need to lower political tension, then I agree. There's need for consultation, and that consultation should be structured to give opposition some slots and the government some slots, if that is what they want in terms of having the eventual 7 commissioners constituted. But also they should follow the law in terms of having the institution operate in a corporate way. That was emphasized by the Supreme Court, but also it's an important lesson we had from the Sheria 4 and the Chebukati 3, how an institution can be divided, can be politically captured, and can be openly corrupt if it is true that they visited the main political players in their homes. The issue is why. I have said this severally, and I'll repeat it. I don't think the problem of elections in Kenya is the IBC commissioners. I don't think so. I don't think it's the personnel. I think it's about how the society has constructed our politics. And I don't see this changing with these high levels of poverty, high levels of unemployment among some of the brilliant youths in the country, and of course, high level of international infiltration. I think the only way, and Kenya is not the only country struggling with credible elections. It happens almost across every continent. Remember, Trump also disputed election results in a country that has a very predictable way and transparent way of conducting elections. I think for Kenya, because now we are getting used to the idea that presidents actually work and retire and go home. So, of course, even governors, 5 years or 10 years, depending on your performance and how elections are conducted. And there are limited disputes at constituency level and at county level. The dispute seems to be at this tallying center in Bomas. I honestly think the solution lies in technology. And that technology should be so simple, so predictable, that within 5 hours of elections, or concluding elections of counting, I tend to think they first count the presidential ballots. Within 5 hours, we should be knowing who has won. We just wait for formal announcement. Okay. That can be done, and that cannot be done by the government alone, or the government appearing to be capturing that process. That is where I disagree with the president. Okay. At the moment, him and Gachagua, to a limited extent, are creating the perception that, we are in government, we are controlling, and we are going to do A, B, C, D. We are going to exercise our mandate. But the mandate of elections cannot be left to the government alone. But importantly, it can also disrupt, because it's fodder for everything. All that Raila and team need to say is that, okay, they have recruited their commissioners. We are not participating. And that is it. All Kenya Kwanza agenda will collapse.
Right. Ekuru, Dr. Ekuru, finally, now some of the issues that are being conversed and the conversations being of course activated around these demonstrations and the prayers and whatever it is. On Wednesday they were praying for IBC. It's around IBC and the electoral process. Now one of the conversations as well has been about Fungua server, open up the server and all that. And I saw the president yesterday had a rebuttal. They were saying the servers have always been open. During the electoral process it was open. Everything was open in there. Now it's been majorly around IBC. Finally, we have an opportunity to fix IEBC by its constitution. All these guys are going on that we've had a problem with. How do we finally do it right? And do you think Azimio is handling this process right?
Let me take back, also as a lawyer, sometimes we are students of history.
Yes.
In revolutionary Russia, sometimes back in 1924, there was a leader called Joseph Stalin. Joseph Stalin, I think when he wrote a very, very wise piece, I think he had Kenya and Kenyans in mind. Joseph Stalin said that those who cast the vote decide nothing, but those who count the vote decide everything. That is the contestation I see in IEBC Kenya. But Bitok, before I come to IEBC Kenya, the contestation, let me demystify how other institutions, very important institutions in this country, are being run. IEBC for me is not important. After all, it only comes handy every 5 years. I have been privileged to serve in 2 university councils. the University of Nairobi Council, and I chaired the Council of Jomo Kenyatta. Those councils are not permanent. They're almost like IEBC. They're not even many, almost the same number as the commissioners at IEBC. But the functions those councils serve, one, in terms of just human development in our institutions of higher learning. We're running about 60-something universities in this country is phenomenal. It's nothing compared to even what some of the commissioners are doing. It's nothing compared to what IEBC is doing. And that's why I'm saying IEBC actually for me is nothing. Its work should be temporary and should come on the 5th year. Imagine university councils managing education in this country, which is a developmental factor, and you graduate human resource that a country needs twice every year. That's a more fundamental job that, in my view, if I had the chance, I will make it permanent. For IEBC, I think Doc has spoken eloquently about it. But part of the contestation around IEBC is the commercialization of IEBC. Yeah? I spoke earlier on that, there's a lot of money in IEBC. Yeah? A lot of money. And that's why you can see there's also a constant cry from IEBC. We don't have a budget. We've not been allocated money. Have you not heard that? Constantly. And sometimes even the accountability, and if you go to the Auditor General report, IEBC is one of those institutions that has not accounted for billions of Kenya shillings. Okay? So, reforming IEBC, for me, should not be a discourse, and I've maintained this from the very beginning of this show. It's not an issue we should be talking about right now. Our concerns, our problems are different. I mean, they are not IEBC today, And for me, to be honest with you, I would rather even strengthen the secretariat of IEBC. Yeah? That's true. I would rather strengthen the secretariat of IEBC. Hire those people on merit, and just commissioners. I mean, they're policymakers. In fact, let's demystify the role of commissioners. You see, when the Sheria Wiki said that we have not verified the results, I laughed my heart out. How do you verify? There are 48,000 over 48,000 polling stations. How can 9 commissioners, 7 commissioners
from 34As, I think,
verify from 34As? Mm-hmm. And then these are very ignorant people. Again, I'm sorry to use these very strong terms. They have not even read the Supreme Court ruling in the Minor Kiai case, in which the Supreme Court declared that the final results is the results at the polling station, not at the National Tallying Center. And Chebukati, I think that's how I don't like Chebukati, as you know. But Chebukati kind of snookered them and told them the only results I will announce are those ones at the polling station, because they are final. That's where the vote was cast, not at Bomas. And that's why I also find the ujinga that we see at Bomas, the ceremonies, the ambassadors being assembled to do what? What are they coming to witness? Chebukati should be announcing these results from the comfort of his office, with the media there. So we are really discussing an issue, in my view, that should not be a priority for this country. So I would rather we talk about something else than talk about IEBC. Yeah, because you see the selection,
then again, we'll come
and the law is very clear. How the selection panel